Today is Friday, January 10th, 2020. This is the Development Review Committee meeting of the City of Fairhope. My name is Buford King. I'm the Development Services Manager. And to give a brief overview of this meeting, this is an opportunity for applicants for items to be considered by the City of Fairhope Planning Commission. And the items that we'll discuss today will be considered by the Planning Commission on February 3rd, 2020. This is a publicly available meeting, but this is staff. The elected officials are not participating in this meeting. No action by any body of the public is taken during this meeting. So this is not a planning commission meeting, and it's not a city council meeting, but it gives the opportunity for the applicants to address staff en masse. Also gives the general public the opportunity to have some advance notice of what is coming to the Planning Commission meeting on February 3rd in this case. Before we begin with cases, just two brief announcements. One, we have a Planning Commission work session that will occur on January 22nd. That will be in the James P. Nix Center beginning at 2 p.m. And the purpose of that work session is to resume discussion of the Greeno Road corridor overlay, and it will not be on an agenda for consideration by the Planning Commission, but it will be another opportunity to discuss the corridor overlay, and the public is welcome and invited to attend. The public will have the opportunity for public participation to ask any questions or also make any comments about the Greeno Road corridor, and an update on that corridor will be presented by staff. The second announcement is just to remind citizens that typically this occurs during our February Planning Commission meeting. That will be the case this year. Is the February Planning Commission meeting will contain an opportunity for public participation on any planning topic, not necessarily a case to be considered. That is a yearly activity that we conduct with the Planning Commission, and that will be on the February 3rd meeting. So we'll begin today's meeting with discussion of cases. We'll begin with case number SD 20.04, Mr. Mike Jeffries.
So we have case SD 20.04. It's a public hearing to consider request of Wise Properties LLC for approval of a minor subdivision, two-lot minor subdivision at Bancroft and Pine. It's approximately 0.4 acres. It's on the northeast corner of Bancroft and Pine Street. An engineer of record, Mr. Larry Smith with SC Civil, is here with us this morning. Larry, this is a fairly routine minor subdivision. We've actually looked at this property once in the past. Only had a couple comments on here, and they mostly refer to comments that would come from the building department. Is moving that property line right on that adjacent building that is currently there. Anything within 5 feet of a property line has to meet building code for fire rating. I believe there's no windows or doors can be on that side. And we can get with Eric Cortinas to go over those details. He did mention if it was outside of 5 feet, 5.01 feet, that fire rating kind of restrictions go away from there. So just something to think about. That construction would have to, I think it's going under some construction now, kind of some remodeling work. And we can get with him individually to go over any particular questions that you might have on that. The only other comment was just a small change on the signature block to reflect the Planning Commission, not the Development Services Manager. Other than that, everything else, it's Zone B2, or currently Zone B4 in the Central Business District, which has the zero side setbacks and all that. So all that is correct. That is on there. That is labeled. Other than that, that's only comments staff have at this time. Do you have any questions or anything?
I do, but they're probably going to be needed to direct to Derek.
Okay.
Because in the comment it said 325 feet.
Yeah, that 3 feet was a typo in the letter I sent to you.
We've been allowed to do 3 in the past.
Okay.
And so mainly we did that on Brian Britt's building and different buildings. And so
3 feet to not have to fire rate the wall or anything? Okay.
So I'll get with him
Okay.
on that to see what the allowable use, and I think you'd also mentioned he was going to go look at the
He went out and inspected the site. Unfortunately, wasn't able to be here this morning due to some other obligations. But we can definitely either set up a meeting, or if you guys want to get together and talk, we get that worked out before the end of next week.
Right. Actually, the fire inspector's here. With the adoption of the new codes, it is 5 feet.
Okay.
But if you don't have anything, I don't have anything.
So the other option would be for him to come in and fire rate that wall, and then he could go back to 0.
Yes, sir. If he fire rated that wall
Need to talk to you on another project.
and brought that up to code, then that's not an issue
Okay.
whatsoever. Just kind of depending on how he wants to proceed from there.
All right, sounds great.
But, all right, and you can take that with you, Larry.
Really, it's got Emily's like signature on it.
Yeah, but it's a markup.
It's a mark. You can have
Do I need to give it back to you?
it. Yeah, you're supposed to return it.
All right. I'm next.
That is all we got. And the next case is SD 20.05. Buford,
That's,
handling that case?
that is my case. Thank you, Mike. And so, Mr. Smith is staying with, he's the engineer of record for this case. And 20.05 is a request of Provision Investments LLC, which is the developer, for a multiple occupancy project for Thompson Hall Quadplexes, a 16-unit multiple occupancy project. This is at the northwest intersection of Thompson Hall Road and County Road 44, Twin Beach Road. And just a brief description on a multiple occupancy project. This is a provision within Fairhope subdivision regulations whenever there are 3 or more units placed on a single piece of property. And so we review it very similar to a typical subdivision. This is one piece of property, but this is requesting 16 units on that. And Larry, I think the biggest thing is getting the green space sorted. And once as we noted in our review comments, and once that's sorted out, I think everything else will fall into place. But happy to answer any specific questions you might have while you're with us today.
Yes. Yeah, we've addressed the highway construction setback issue, and yeah, we're maneuvering through the green space requirements. I think we're going to be fine. There's plenty of undeveloped portions, but with both of these frontages being considered a major collector, both Thompson Hall and Twin Beach, and going 75 feet, it is eating up a lot of green space.
Right.
And so, not that it's a comment, but just I don't know. There's definitely a hardship here. I think we can still make our green space. I think we need about half an acre of green space, but just something y'all moving forward might want to look at on. I don't know. I don't know if when the green space requirements were updated, if it was really the intent. I mean, on this one, it's a very. This now, I guess, the second project we're working on where it becomes a very hard way to meet all the standards.
Right.
And so, like I said, I think we're gonna be fine, but it's just something we need to look at moving forward.
And Larry, I don't know if this helps this situation or not, and I may be speaking out of turn about something because I'm several years removed from it, but I do remember from my days with the county that from time to time the Planning Commission would consider, and I don't remember if their language was a waiver or a variance to that highway construction setback. And the reason I recall it is because one was requested and approved not far from where I live in the county. And I don't know if that's possible, if that helps here or not, but I know they were doing it at one time.
But that won't affect our green space though, because the way y'all's is, it can't be up against a major roadway, and so even if we wanted to get a highway construction setback issue, I think y'all's ordinance, the way you worded it, would still on Thompson Hall would still. If we try to put green space along Thompson Hall, if we try to get any credit for there, we have those nice live oaks that we're trying to save, that we would still not be able to take credit for that because it's classified as a major collector.
And I think, Larry, the way I will, here's my thinking and my interpretation on that is that if we have green space that is identified outside of the 75-foot highway construction setback, if we're abiding by that requirement and staying out of that highway construction setback, which is 75 feet, wherever that falls, I think that's something we can consider, is if you have it there and it's just outside that highway construction setback, I think we can come up with a compliance there. I think that may be a reasonable interpretation.
Yes, yeah, but that's what's, I guess the question is what is considered off of the road?
Okay.
Even if the city doesn't, I mean, if the county doesn't enforce Thompson Hall's highway construction setback, then how far off would I need to be off that road to be able to consider it green space?
What I'll tell you, what I'll say here, Larry, is that if it's green space, that's just physically there in the highway construction setback, we wouldn't count it. But if it's outside the highway construction setback, even if it's next to the highway construction setback, I think we count that, and I believe we have on other cases.
We're
Okay.
not saying the same thing.
Okay, understood. But I'll tell you what, Larry,
I'll find out if we even have an issue.
Sure,
and
sure.
Then we can talk. If there's an
Exactly.
issue.
In your follow-up correspondence, just address it, and then we'll take it from there.
Okay. Trying to think if there's anything else. We're still working on the sewer with the city.
Okay.
And so I know Jay had marked up some plans. Richard is working diligently trying to get gravity sewer in that area.
Right.
And we have our client also trying to help with that. There's a way to get gravity sewer to this site, but it requires multiple easements from other adjacent property owners.
Okay.
So our fallback will be a grinder pump type lift station, or not a grinder.
A package lift station.
A package
Yep.
lift station.
Yep.
But one way or the other, we're going to get sewer. We're trying to work with the city because it would be in both of our best interests to have gravity sewer in that area.
Exactly.
So-
And Jay was reviewing it with me and showing me his comments, and after he marked it up several times, we concluded it'd be best bet for Jay just to meet with you directly.
Yeah, I didn't really follow that markup. I figured
I lost track of it too. I lost track of it
But
too.
I think
so.
I know what his intent was. He's trying to relocate everything to, if we get the gravity option, it'll be easier to connect.
Exactly.
I think is what his intent was. So,
Very good.
All right.
Anything else, Larry, or any other comments, questions you have?
No.
All right. Thank you so much, Larry. Have
All
a great day, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to SD 20.06, and this is a 3-lot minor subdivision. I'll turn it over to Ms. Samara Wallace.
Okay, yes, this is SD 20.06. This is a public hearing to consider the request of Wayne and Sherry Mosley for plat approval of Mosley Estate Farms, a 3-lot minor subdivision. The property is approximately 10.3 acres and is located on the north side of Dominion Drive, just east of Mary Ann Beach Road. We have reviewed this application, and I've been in contact with Mr. Justin Palmer of the Woodlands Group. There were just a few revisions that needed to be made, letters that need to be received from the utility providers, flow model data that we did receive from our chief water operator. We needed sidewalks to be illustrated on the site plan, and then some revisions to the access easements. If I don't see Mr. Justin Palmer, but if a representative was here today, or if anybody else had any comments that needed to be made, that was all that planning and zoning had at this time.
So Samara, sounds like pretty routine comments for a minor
Yes.
subdivision. And the sidewalk issue is something we take up a lot with the Planning Commission. And so invariably we have that comment on just about every minor subdivision we encounter. But not having a design professional representative here, unless anything else we can help you with at the staff level, Samara, we'll move on.
Okay, that's all.
All right, very good. So we'll move on to SD 20.07, another minor subdivision. I'll turn it over to Ms. Carla Davis.
Thank you, Buford. As you stated, SD 20.07, a public hearing to consider the request of A&A Cordy Family Limited Partnership for plat approval of the re-subdivision of Lot 1B, a re-subdivision of Lot 1 of the Planters Plaza subdivision. This is a 2-lot minor division. The property is approximately 8.82 acres and is located on the north side of Fairhope Avenue, just west of Courthouse Drive. I've been in email correspondence with Mr. Steve Humphrey. He's not here right now. I don't know if he has a representative in the audience, but we'll just go over quickly the comments that we've made on the staff level for the planning department. The revision of the plat to depict a 20-foot minimum building setback line, utility easement and sidewalk where Lot 2 abuts road frontage along Courthouse Drive. The revision of the plat to depict a note on the plat stating sidewalks will be constructed at the time of development of Lot 1 and Lot 2. Submission of an aerial image of the site to depict contour lines at 2-foot intervals. Submission of a topography survey. The provision of a wetland delineation from a delineator to verify if the site is within or not within a wetland. And then I received these comments from Mr. Eric Cortinez earlier this morning, and I've also emailed Mr. Humphrey this so he can review it digitally. But the submission of an elevation certificate showing the flood elevation and elevation of the natural grade.
Very good, thank you, Carla. And Carla, I received an email from Steve Pumphrey right before I left left our office to attend this meeting, and Steve basically said for their various cases that they basically didn't have additional questions and that they were in understanding on all the staff comments, and so unless we specifically had an issue that we demanded that they attend, that there was really no need for them to attend. So it's not mandatory if the applicant is satisfied and they're in understanding of the questions that we have for them. Then from time to time, they may not attend. So fairly routine comments on this one, Carla?
Yes.
All right, very good. Okay, so unless there's anything else, we'll move on. And then we'll move on to SD 20.08, Mr. Mike Jeffries.
This case, subdivision case 20.08. It's a public hearing. Consider the request of 24/7 Development Partners, LLC, for a preliminary plat approval of Summer Lane, a 15-lot subdivision. Property is located at the east terminus of Summer Lane and on the west side of South Section Street. This was a recently approved zoning change to a planned unit development. The submitted plan is in accordance with the approved site plan. There were a handful of small notes that needed to be changed on some of the construction drawings and or on the plat. As Buford mentioned, Mr. Steve Pumphrey with Dewberry has said that they don't have any issues with any of the comments that were sent in on these cases. So I look forward to seeing those comments addressed on December 17th when they resubmit everything to us for final review. That is all the comments that I have on that case.
All right, thank you very much, Mike. So we'll move on, and we have two utility review cases, which we do see from time to time, and this is 115211 in the Code of Alabama that provides provision for these types of reviews, and they go to the local planning commission in the jurisdiction applicable. So we'll begin with UR 20.01, and this is a request from Mediacom and Mediacom's contractor. And I'll turn it over to Ms. Samara Wallen.
Thank you, Buford. This is UR 20.01, request of Mediacom for an 115211 utility review and approval of the proposed underground installation of approximately 1,106 linear foot of fiber optic and CATV cable. The project will run along Morphy Avenue from Eddington Street east to Hollow Haven Street. I did reach out to the representative to make them aware that we are requesting, Planning and Zoning is requesting the submission of plan and profile of the subject site so that staff can see a more clear representation of the proposed area of work and the proposed depth that the applicant intends to bore along this street. At this time, I haven't received any other revisions or requests from any of our other utilities, and that is all that we have.
Very good, Samara. And wasn't the do I remember correctly? This is Bigham Cable is the contractor who's
Yes.
doing the work on behalf of Mediacom.
Yes, that's
Very
right.
good. And so the request for plans and profiles, because we do have a drawing that's a plan, but it's not to scale. But we definitely need that profile drawing, so
Right.
that way we see the other utilities under which this will cross.
Right,
Because
exactly.
various things, because it can be something as simple, that seems as simple as avoiding tree roots.
Right.
Where the bore depth, because this will be a directional bore and it may need to go deeper to avoid tree roots. We may have an area where the gas department has critical valves which can be just about anywhere in the right-of-way, and various other utilities. So they've given us an average depth of bore, but there may be areas where that needs that depth needs to increase and go deeper in certain areas. So with that profile, we'll be able to review it.
Right,
So,
exactly.
So very good. Thank you, Samara. And we'll move on to the next utility review case, UR 20.02. This is a request by Southern Light, and I'll turn it over to Ms. Carla Davis.
Thank you. As before stated, this is a UR utility review for 20.02, request of Southern Light LLC for 11.5211 utility review and approval of the proposed underground installation of approximately 991 linear foot of fiber optic cable. The project will run along Morphy Avenue, Young Street, and Horns Lane. I've sent an email list identifying these comments. I've not spoken with the representative. However, just to summarize what was sent, staff needs to revise the site plan and drawings to depict or make a statement indicating the J box will be installed parallel to the street and not perpendicular to the street. We need a revised drawing to correctly depict where the water line lies. In the provision of an erosion control plan and statement on how the right-of-way will be stabilized each day, while including the following comments that were listed. Disturbed areas shall be covered at the end of each day. The mulch seed shall only be acceptable as temporarily covered. Sod shall be installed on disturbed areas of the right-of-way as final cover within 10 days of completion of the project, and sod shall be watered to ensure survival. So once these comments are taken care of, addressed from a planning and zoning standpoint.
Yes, sir. If you have any questions to staff, you're welcome to come to the table and address staff. Anything we can help you with this review?
Yeah, my only question, I think it's just a typo, though it's depicting the water line on Mershon. I think you meant Young Street. Because on Mershon, we're already existing aerial there, and the only place we show water line is Young Street, so I was just making sure
Typos do occur.
Yeah, I was just making
Typos
sure.
do occur.
And I will put that statement on each page for the junction boxes. Do y'all want us to make all 4 statements on the erosion control plan, or can we give you a bulk erosion control plan that we use for like DOT, things like that?
Do you have a standalone drawing? Do you have a standalone drawing in your set for that?
We have a whole erosion control plan packet we can give y'all.
And that's fine.
Okay.
That's fine because that's typical for other projects. So yeah, if you have just a standalone drawing with all your standard details that accomplishes that's perfectly fine.
This only takes about a day to do, so I'm not expecting any issues on it.
Very good, very good. Well, that way we
As
have.
long as you're not doing it on Saturday.
Well, that way we have your revised set. Then you can use that. Then you can use that for your right-of-way permit.
Okay, yeah, we'll get
All
that
right.
to y'all probably later today.
Outstanding. All right, very good. Anything else, Carla? All right, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for coming. So before we adjourn, just two announcements. For the February 3rd Planning Commission meeting under old new business, I will once again address family subdivisions. And this is something I've received quite a number of questions about over the last several months because Baldwin County has a family subdivision process that, in brief, allows a family subdivision to occur without going before the Baldwin County Planning Commission for approval. Essentially, the person can receive an exemption letter where they prepare a plat and take it to probate and record it. We're investigating if there's possibly some version of that we could have within the Fairhope planning jurisdiction. I don't really think that I have a consensus from the Planning Commission on this right now, so we'll continue to work on that. And then we'll also have an additional update on the Greeno Road Corridor overlay districts. And just to provide just a super brief update while we're here and convened, we gave a brief update to the City Council on December 23rd of 2019, and a much longer update to the Planning Commission at the January meeting this past January 6th. So we'll do that again for the February meeting, but just one more announcement. We mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, we'll mention it here before we adjourn, that on January 22nd in the James B. Nick Center, beginning at 2 p.m., we'll have a Planning Commission work session just for, and specifically for, the Greeno Road Corridor. There'll be an update from staff. There'll be opportunity for the public to address the Planning Commission. And with that, if we have no other comments or concerns from staff, we'll adjourn. We stand adjourned. Thank you. Thank you, Jeff, for your recording.